All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mindful Marathon Conversations. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Quirk. I'm a pediatrician and a run coach and the founder of Mindful Marathon, where I help make running easy and fun for busy professionals. And today I am super, super excited to introduce our guest. I'm so glad that she is here and I'm thankful she is here. I have with me Danielle Reedy. She is an Olympian, speaker, coach, author, and podcast host. From Canada to Australia, she pursued her impossible dream of joining the Australian national synchronized swimming team and competing in the Olympics. And she achieved that goal at the Rio Olympics in 2016. Now, after she retired in 2019, she now passionately guides individuals worldwide through her podcasts, programs, retreats, and coaching, helping them liberate their body, mind, and soul to live a life they love. So welcome to the show, Danielle. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's so fun to be here. I'm so excited.
Well, I was saying before we started that there's probably 105 different places we could start, but I'm most interested. I think I'm coming at this with my own bias that perhaps many people, many Olympians must have had a childhood dream of some sort to go to the Olympics, and that is not the case with you. And so I'm checking my own bias at the door, but can you tell us a little bit about your journey to the Olympics? Let's start there.
So it's not that I've always loved the Olympics. Like I'm the girl, like I'll sit down every 2 years when the Winter and Summer Olympics come and I'll like watch the Olympics and I'll just like cry my eyes out even before I ever went. And it's not that I didn't have the dream to go. It's like I never thought it was possible for me. So I didn't even dream that big. And I think sometimes we do that to ourselves. It's like that's like that's why I call it an impossible dream. It seems so crazy to me. So my journey was really different to the Olympic Games. I started my sport of synchronized swimming, which, if you're looking for it at the upcoming Olympics, it's under the name now artistic swimming,
Okay.
which is kind of similar to artistic gymnastics. But in our community, we often call it synchronized swimming. And so I started when I was 8 years old, way too tall to be a gymnast. I'm 5'9". And I found swimming really boring. You're just staring at the bottom of the pool. And so my mom chucked me in this sport of synchronized swimming. And as a little girl, I got to work with a team. I got to see my friends every practice. I got to do something that was really hard and like put my mind to it and accomplish things. But I also got to wear a sparkly bathing suit and makeup. And I was like, I'm sold. And so after a few years, I really started to fall in love with it. I started to get more competitive. I was training quite a lot throughout my high school years, just because that's what our sport really requires. It's a very technically challenging sport, so you have to put in a lot of hours. I was in high school and training 20, 25 hours a week on top of going to school full time normally. So the only problem was I was never really the most talented. I was kind of like the least likely to succeed. I was never the most valuable player, the most valuable athlete. I even got the chance to go to Canadian national championships, which I thought was like the coolest thing in the world at the time. But I was like the reserve, like the girl on the bench,
Okay.
the one
Okay.
that isn't like the main
Okay.
the main star
Like
by
an
any
alternate
means.
type. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
an alternate.
hmm
Exactly.
hmm
And so I knew that I wasn't going to go anywhere, I say in quotation marks. I didn't think that there was anything more for me. So when I graduated high school, I retired, again in quotation marks, and I thought that was the end of the line. And so life and the universe kind of had a whole nother plot twist coming for me. And what that looked like over the next couple of years is I stayed involved. And I think like this is so important. And I'm sure this would resonate with your audience. Like, do the things that make you happy, even if it's not competitive, right? And I think sometimes we only do the things that make us happy to achieve the goal. But if it makes you happy, just do it. And so I stayed involved in my sport, not at a competitive level, but just for pure enjoyment. And that led me to training while I was at university. I was working a couple of jobs training at university with my teammates. And one day we at practice, we're practicing highlights. Highlights in synchronized swimming are these human pyramids that we build underwater. We all egg beater up to the surface. We create like a human spring and someone jumps off the top, does an acrobatic flip and lands in the water. It's like really amazing to watch. If you're watching the upcoming artistic swimming at the Olympics, definitely look for it. And this one particular day, my teammate jumped up and she slipped and she fell straight down on my head. This is quite a common injury in our sport. from highlights because they are very dangerous. And so that night I was driving home, I started to feel really nauseous. I had a headache behind my eye, and I was trying to study for my midterm the next day, and I was trying to read the words, but I had no idea what it said. So the next day I went to the doctor and they said I had a concussion.
Mhm.
And I really, really struggle with that. I'm speaking to like active women and athletes in your audience specifically. And if you tell someone that's active or an athlete that they need to lie in a dark room for a month and not do anything, like that's basically like hell on earth, right? Like, no, thank you. And so that was me as well. And I ended up having to drop out of the semester of university. I like couldn't go back. I was getting really bad headaches, and I say concussions are very similar to struggling with your mental health. Like I looked fine, but my brain was not okay. And I
Mhm.
was very much in this poor me victim state. And also, one of the things, and I want to bring this up specifically with your audience, is I was terrified to rest because if I wasn't busy, I had to face my own thoughts. And I was scared of myself, and I was scared of my thoughts, and I was scared of me beating myself up so much that I wouldn't survive from that. And I
Mhm.
think that actually is the stem of why, not everyone, but I think it's the stem of why a lot of women don't allow themselves to rest, not just because of the feeling of lack of accomplishment, but sometimes we're afraid to face ourselves. And stillness means we got to sit with ourselves. And so I was very much like forced to, like, universe was like, sit down and look at yourself. And that was hard. It was really hard. This all happened over my 21st birthday. The day
Oh.
after my 21st birthday, I was talking to my girlfriend on the phone. She was a previous teammate. And for a bit of really important piece of context, my parents are Australian. They
Mhm.
immigrated to Canada when I was little.
Okay.
And my teammate, like ironically as well, her father was Australian. So at the time we're on the phone, she gets a Facebook message from the assistant national team coach of the Australian synchronized swimming team. It's a very small world in our sport. And she says to her, it's 2013 this time,
Mhm.
she says, any chance you want to come to Australia, try out for the team. We're trying to rebuild the team to qualify for the Olympic Games.
Wow.
And as a
Okay.
friend, I was like, you go for this. This is amazing. I believe in you. Like, I've been a really good cheerleader of other people.
Yes.
And after about 30 minutes of cheering her on, she turns around and looks at me and she's like, Danielle, you could do this too. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what? It was everyone knew she was a better athlete than me. And I also had a concussion. Like, we were in Canada. Like, there's this laundry list of a million reasons why this was like so impossible and so hard and
Yeah.
so like, not for me. That's what I thought, and I say everyone's going to have different opportunities in life, but your opportunity might not look like mine. But how
Mhm.
often does an opportunity present ourselves and we don't even count ourselves in?
Yeah.
We don't even think that that's for us because we don't think we're worthy enough, that we're good enough, that we're smart enough, that we're talented enough, or whatever. And so, even though I thought all of those things, I had this moment. I've always been a bit of an old soul. I imagined myself on my deathbed one day looking back on my life and the choices that I made. And this was really like a fork in the road moment. And there was one avenue where I was absolutely terrified of what people are going to think of me, people judging me. Who does she think that she is? How dare she think that she can get on that team? Why would she go do something crazy? She's going to fall flat on her face. What if I do fail? And then the other road was, if I don't do it, I'm going to always wonder who I could have been if I had just found a bit of courage.
Whew.
And even though I was a million percent scared of what everyone was going to think of me, a million percent scared of how do I even do this? Am I going to fall on my face? What if I fail? I was more terrified of wondering who I could have been. I was more afraid of regretting and
Mhm.
spending the rest of my life thinking, maybe if I just did that, it would have created another path. And so that whole thought process helped me make this crazy, wild, beautiful, and naive decision at 21 years old to do something absolutely batshit crazy and go after this dream. And I'm cutting a lot of pieces out, but that is the trajectory that led me to the Olympic Games.
Whew. Wow. I got chills. I don't know if all of you did, but you, I wish I had taken more notes. I was listening so intently to the story, but there are a few things I want to go back to. But I think, you had written that you could speak about your journey as like going from an average human to Olympian. And I would say you're definitely not an average human, but that fork in the road and that decision that you made, yeah, I mean, how many times are we faced with decisions like that and we just we fly on through actually because we're so busy
Mhm.
and we never take
Mhm.
the time to consider it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for my audience out there listening, I know there are a lot of people. I say that I am the least likely person to have run a marathon because I was not a runner as a kid. I was not like a track star. I am rather slow in comparison to many of the runners I coach. But people say to me all the time, like, "Oh, well, I'm not a runner. I could never do that." Or oh, well, I'm a casual runner. I just do, 3 or 5 miles here and there. I could never run a marathon. But I think that we do. We count ourselves out a lot when it's actually more feasible. I'm not saying going to go to the Olympics as a runner, but to run the marathon,
Mhm.
only I think 1% of the population runs a marathon, but many more could.
And and I love that you bring that up because I live in Vancouver and we have quite a few half marathons and marathons. And I live in an area where like once or twice a year, if not more than that, it actually goes straight by where I live, the marathons. And my husband makes fun of me. I kid you not, I sit out there with my speaker playing
Yes,
Eye of the Tiger on repeat
we
and
love you.
by myself and cheering people on and like fighting tears. I'm like emotional, like trying not to bawl my eyes out. Recently, a few months ago, I actually went to the finish line of the marathon. And like I remember it was this lady that finished the half marathon. And she was at the point where I think the marathon people were passing her. Like the first place marathon person had like passed her. So it was like 3 hours or something like that for her half marathon. But at the end of the race, there was like clearly she was Irish, I think, and her mom and her dad were there, and she didn't know that they were going to be there. And she runs those last 10 meters and starts like bawling her eyes out. And I start crying. She doesn't even know me. I'm like one of the thousands
No, we love
in
you.
the
We love
crowd.
you.
And then she goes across the finish line and she just collapses in their arms. And I'm like, that moment will stick with me for the rest of her life. And she was probably the last person in the race. And she just inspired the heck out of me, right? We don't have to do, yes, Olympics is inspiring, but like, I love the path of running because like it is so inspirational for people in your life to do something uncomfortable because a lot of us run away from discomfort in our life, and things like exercise and running are such a beautiful way to just daily overcome those discomforts that a lot of people don't do.
Yeah, no, it's true. And we love you for cheering and just yeah, bring out a cowbell. We
I
but
actually do have one, but I'm like trying not to be like too crazy. I started
oh no.
bringing my speaker and playing music, and my neighbors are like, "What is with this girl?" I don't know anyone.
We're gonna
Crying.
have to put the Vancouver half marathon and full marathon on our list. We'll do
Yeah,
that.
I'll be
Done.
there cheering you on.
But one other thing, you had mentioned that I put a pin in to go back to. So a lot of my listeners and my runners, we're amazing, high achieving professional people, scientists and teachers and lawyers and doctors. And I'm looping myself in that we are very, very good at following a training plan and going through the steps. And, a lot of times a coach provides accountability, but it's almost like my people don't even need accountability to follow the training plan. However, we have a lot of trouble resting. Whether that might be we have some aches and pains and we should probably take a rest day to, really we need a month off of the sport or just a full day off of the sport. And for some of us, it's really hard to do
Mm.
that. And so I think, you touched on it a little bit, but maybe can you speak a little bit to the rest and just maybe over your last couple of years, especially since the Olympics, how has rest showed up for you and what has it taught you? That's a very large question.
Yeah, it's such a good question because I was like the girl that used to struggle with rest and used to like avoid rest. I used to say I'll sleep when I'm dead. That was my attitude. The funny thing is, if you say that for long enough, like as a human being, I don't know a person that doesn't catch up to. Like your body will tell you eventually. And unfortunately, at the end of my career, I was so exhausted. Like my performance I noticed that it was going to start decreasing if I didn't either quit or change something.
Mhm.
And the reason that I say that is because I think so many of us in the masculine energy of being a goal achieving woman, which in many ways is an amazing thing, because I wouldn't be an Olympian if I didn't have that. I wouldn't have done all the things that I have. But we put our worth on our external accomplishments instead of realizing that our worth is inherent. This is very hard though, because what happens is if we don't accomplish anything that day, if we don't do exercise that day or get everything off the to-do list, then we think of ourselves as less than as a human being. And that, I think, is the core of where the challenge comes from. I remember there's this day in my when I was training and I was a full-time athlete and I was really sick, and I ended up having to take a day off and then 2 days off and then 3 days off. And on the third day, I was realizing I was having like an existential crisis, because I'm like, I can't remember the last time I haven't done exercise for 3 days in a row. And I was really like, I was like having to work through anxiety, because I'm like, who am I? Am I going to slide into these horrible habits? Am I going to become this lazy person that never does anything anymore? And we start to get into this like, oh my gosh, I'm on this slippery slide and I'm never going to come back from it. And it's funny how we do that in our minds. But what I've really, especially to the women that are listening to this, is like, your powerful habits that have made you the person that you are today are inherent inside of you. However, if you want to do better things for the world, for your family, for your job, for your own accomplishments, having rest will actually help you get there. And if you don't, you are harming yourself, your body, your family, your career, and your goals, because none of us can go 24/7 all the time. We need sleep, we need fuel, we need water, we need those things. And if you don't realize that, and this is a harsh reality, so many women nowadays have burnout.
Yeah.
Because if you don't rest, your body will make you. And I see this happen to women all the time. So if you can find the space inside of yourself to do it before your body stops you, you will create so much more ease in your life. And I'm not saying that it's easy, because it's not. And a lot of that comes back to the lack of being able to rest, I believe, comes back to the inner work that we need to do to be able to sit with ourselves. Because the sitting with ourselves is the uncomfortable part, and the detaching our worth from our work. What we are inherently worthy, whether we do things or not. And you not doing something today doesn't mean you are less worthy. But so many people that are in this high accomplishing state, like they get their worth from their output. But if we don't have output, then our worth decreases. And we really have to start to change that narrative. And I think that also comes with really being aware of our identity. I remember I had a really personal development focused coach when I was a teenager, which is amazing. And she asked us all this question, which totally like rattled my existence at the time. I think I was 15 or 16. And like, I was a person, I was like, I identified myself as a synchronized swimmer. And I think we do this, like you identify yourself as a mom or a doctor or a runner.
Yeah.
And she said, tell me who you are and don't use synchronized swimmer. And I was like, I don't know. Like, it like literally, I sat with that question for like 5 years. Like it hits me. Because I was like, well, I don't want to not be her. Like, yes, I'm so proud of her, but who am I if I'm not that? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think the journey that we have to go on in our rest is to figure out who we are without our accomplishments. And that who we are deep down is actually an inherently worthy, magical, beautiful woman. But I can tell you that till my face is blue, but you have to realize it.
Yeah. Yeah. Preach it, sister. Wow. Okay. I'm flashing back to like, I'm a little older than you, but when I finished medical training, I was burned out, but I didn't have that word yet. Like that was maybe like 2012-ish. And I'm sure it existed, but I don't think people were talking about it as much as we are now. But I didn't know, but I thought something was wrong with me. Like, I've gone through this whole, 10 years of school and med school and training and all of these things. And I finally have this job that I have wanted. And now I am here and I'm supposed to have arrived somewhere, but I don't know where I'm arriving exactly, but I'm not very happy and I'm tired all the time and I don't really want to go there. And I've had that, through my career up and down. I'm starting to finally kind of understand what needs to happen in terms of a balance for me personally of like my doctor work and coaching and everything else. But that's been a whole journey.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
you do
but
is amazing.
yes, but I enjoy being at the office and seeing the kids so much more now. And if I think back to 2012, I felt very lost at that
Yeah.
time. But it's sitting with myself that really was a very hard thing to do and to really like ask these questions and finally have time to ask them because for so long you're just responsible for other human beings and learning all of this stuff and lack of sleep and night shifts
Yeah.
and all of this craziness. And so anyway, it's certainly not the
And I
same
think,
as an elite athlete, but
well, it's like everyone has their own like struggle in different
yeah,
ways, and all
yeah.
are equal, right? And I think for a big portion of time, it was like me figuring out, why am I keeping myself always busy? What am I running from?
Yep.
What am I running from? Why can't I sit with myself?
Mm-hmm.
Why does sitting with myself literally viscerally make me uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And then having to like reckon with those parts of me.
Yeah.
And then also, I think that you like hit the nail on the head saying, like, when you're finishing medical school, which we do this with any accomplishments. It's like the if then policy of life, right? It's like, oh, if I hit this, then I'll feel this. If I hit this goal, then I'll feel. If I, finish the race,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll feel this. And like, yes, of course you will, but like you'll feel that for a few minutes, and then it will go.
Mm-hmm.
I competed at the Olympic Games for 7 minutes. I had 2 routines, a 3-minute routine and a 4-minute routine. Someone like Usain Bolt's, it's like 10 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And I realized I swam, it all went by in a flash. I walked up on stage, we got our scores, and it was done. It was like I blinked and it was over. And this whole thing I'm building my whole existence and all my goals up to had just passed in the blink of an eye. And I had this moment where I was like, oh my God, it was never about this. It's never about being here. It was about the woman that I became on this journey. It was about the hardship that I overcome. It was about the people that I met. It was about the experiences that I had. Because I always say, if you took away those 7 minutes, but you gave me everything else, I would still be the person that I am today. But if you only gave me those 7 minutes and I didn't get to meet all those people, I didn't get to overcome all those things, I didn't get to go through all those challenges, I couldn't sit here and talk to you about this. I am who I am because of my journey. And I know it's cheesy, but it's cheesy for a
No.
reason, because it's true.
Yeah, yeah. Could you maybe as a way to part, can you give us, because I like a homework assignment, we all like homework assignments, for people who are
Yeah.
new to this,
Yeah.
just some practical tips of how to sit with yourself, even if it is, like I meditate a short amount of time every day. I know it's not for everyone, but tips that you have put into your daily routine to learn how to sit with yourself.
Mm. So I remember when I first started meditating, I did a 1-minute meditation, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is so hard. and now a lot of change. And so even remembering, like, with meditation, please don't think that you have to do it perfectly your first time. And it's also not about not thinking. Like, it's
Right.
just about state of peace. But I think some people, like, I wasn't ready for meditation many years ago. But what helps me is self-reflective exercises. And one of like the 2 greatest questions I asked myself almost every day when I was an athlete was, what did I do well today and what can I improve on?
Mm-hmm.
And I would write that down every single day. I'd have 3 things. This is very like athlete focused, but we can do this in life. We can do this in our work. We can do this with parenthood. We can do this with everything in our relationship. What am I proud of myself from today? And I say that specifically because quite often women go straight to, oh, I didn't do this, I should have done this, and we beat ourselves up. But if we start with, what did I do well? We start to train our brain to look for the good.
Mm-hmm.
And then not the question of like, what was I bad at, but what do I want to improve on for tomorrow? Taking the acknowledgement that we are human beings and no one's perfect and we all want to improve, but it's not from a place of beating ourselves up, and it's from an energy of expansion. Like those 2 questions, if you can take 5 minutes the end of your day or in your morning to reflect on that, like you will start to become more aware of yourself and just take space to like take note of your life. And that space for self-awareness will create more safety to be able to have more rest and stillness and check in on ourselves and just grow. Like I think those two simple questions are so powerful.
Yeah. No, you're very right. We often go right to the shoulds, like what I should have done differently. Yeah, they show up
100%.
first. Oh, well, that's fabulous advice. I think that before my coaching calls, I usually have people focus on their wins also. So I think,
Yeah,
but
similar.
doing it every day is what will make it a part of our regular practice and then open up other doors and windows and everything else.
Yeah,
Well, thank you
exactly.
so much. I feel like I could talk to you for 5 more hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. Can you tell everyone where to find you and your podcast, especially?
Yeah, so you can find me. My main places I'm on Instagram. It's the Danielle Reedy, Reedy. And then on my Instagram, you go into the links and you can find my podcast. It's called the Beautiful Souls Podcast. I have like over 150 episodes, which are so much good stuff in there. And then I also share my programs, my workshops, the content, and the retreats that my husband and I run. So that's a really good place. And if you've enjoyed this, I always love it when, reach out to Michelle or myself and let us know, because it's so cool to hear the little nuggets that really stuck with you.
Yeah, and thank you so much. The retreat it's in Bali that looks
Yeah.
amazing. So everyone definitely
Amazing.
check that out and check out the podcast. Well, thank you so much for being here, for your time and your wisdom, and just sharing these pieces of yourself with my audience and with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a pleasure.
And everybody, we will catch you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If you liked it, please subscribe and share it with a friend. And if you are a newer runner or a runner who hasn't run in a while and you're looking to get back into the sport, you can find out how to work with me over on my website, which is mindful-marathon.com. See you on the next episode.